Hi guys, and welcome to SnipBit, the podcast to show that you can be successful in your chosen field, no matter what your background or start in life. Today, I'm absolutely excited to introduce an athletics legend, Jonathan Edwards, Olympic, World, European and Commonwealth champion in triple jump. He was the first man to break 18 meters and 60 feet in the same meeting, and he still holds the world record for triple jump. Jonathan, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on SnipBit.
Pleasure, Hayley. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, okay. Are you ready for the interrogation to start?
Well, that's it.
So, Jonathan, do you think that your background and upbringing have been a factor in your success?
Yes, without question. My father was one of my biggest supporters. I probably wouldn't have become an athlete if it was without him encouraging / pestering me. I think my education played a big part. I went to a school which, gave me a good academic education, but was also very strong on sport. So I think that was important, and it was important for my parents to give me the best education, and they made sacrifices in order for that to happen. And the values I think that they taught me, working hard, or doing your best, always trying to improve, all those sorts of very simple, basic values, without question made me who I am today and what I became as an athlete.
And I think that's so important, isn't it, to have that grounding as a child?
Yeah, without question. I think the lessons you learned in your earliest years, your formative years, as we call them, they're called that for a reason, because the person you'll become is formed so often for better or worse during those times. So I'm, forever grateful for my parents and for the foundation they gave me in my life.
Brilliant. So obviously, you appear to have a growth mindset, and do you think that that's been important in your career?
Yeah, I guess if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't have that inner drive to try and be better. I can remember when I was doing my triple jump and long jump and all the different athletics events at school, the excitement of seeing the tape measure being pulled out and whether you got a personal best or not, or you'd run a little bit faster than you had the time before. And I think for me, that was one of the delights of athletics, that trying to do something better than you'd done previously, and the planning towards, once I became a top athlete, that 4-year cycle towards each Olympic Games and how you'd plot your way to be better than you were the last time, to improve. And I guess to find out, when we're born, when we start life, when we start any endeavor, we have no idea how good we can be. And I think to simply have a mindset of trying to be as good as you can be is really important. You can give up a long time before you find out how good you are for a whole host of reasons. Maybe not believing you're good enough, maybe listening to people who doubt you. So I think the growth mindset, as you call it, it's not particularly how I would have described it myself. It's not how I describe myself, but it is what I do, the way that I have interacted as an athlete and as a person, to try and improve myself.
Brilliant. So what point in your career did you know that you were going to be successful?
I was unusual in that I wasn't very good when I was younger. I was a talented sportsman, but I was also good academically, and I went and did physics at Durham University. So it wasn't as if I was a junior superstar who was about to step onto the Olympic track and win a gold medal or break a record. And my first appearance for Great Britain was at the Olympic Games in 1988 in Seoul. And I didn't even make the final of the triple jump. I don't think anybody would have picked me out to be a world record holder or Olympic champion at that point. So I guess I was always, fighting against, not an inferiority. It's that sort of, do I really belong at the highest level? And not feeling as if I'd always been a world beater and I was going to continue to be a world beater as I went into the senior ranks. So I probably only knew it was going to happen when it actually happened, I think, is the reality. But I think I was less focused on where it would all end, although I had my hopes and dreams, and who doesn't dream about winning Olympics if they're an athlete? Mm-hmm. But I think I was just more focused on the process trying to be as good as I could be, and I didn't know how good that was, and it turned out that it was the best, and that's amazing. But in a sense, that's sort of irrelevant. It was the process that got me there that mattered the most.
So more like competing against yourself to be better.
Yeah, I mean, not even necessarily competing against myself. It's was I trying to? Yeah, I understand what the question and what you're getting at, but it didn't. I don't know if it felt like a competition. It just felt like a pursuit of excellence, I guess. And doing better than I'd done before was a way of measuring that.
And would you say that the pursuit of excellence has been something you followed after sport?
Yeah, I think anything I've turned my hand to, I've tried to do well. And I think for me, part of the enjoyment comes from doing something well. I mean, it's interesting now that I'm the wrong side of 50, and you realise that most of the things you do, you're not going to get better at, you're only going to get worse. And it's a process of managing decline. So I think that is certainly an adjustment for me to, and I think at different stages of life, you have different aims and different goals. And probably this stage of life is more about perhaps enjoyment and, kicking back a little bit and putting my feet up and enjoying life rather than always trying to progress and trying to be better. But I think that is just the natural cycles of life.
And that's not a bad aim to have, is it?
No, I mean, absolutely. And in a way, I'm pleased that I can do that, because I see a lot of people who always have to continue, if you like, improving and winning, and that can be a burden as much as a pleasure. I think, there's a time and a season for everything. And I think my time and season for trying to be as good as I can be is probably behind me. Although I am quite competitive with my golf handicap. I figure I've maybe got 5 more years to get my handicap going down before it starts to go back up again.
Oh, that's brilliant. So in all of this, who has been your biggest inspiration?
I don't think I could pick out one person. I mean, I mentioned my dad, and I wouldn't be here, having achieved what I've achieved without his encouragement and his support, and him putting me in touch with my coaches in my early years and nagging me, frankly. But I wouldn't necessarily term that an inspiration. It was more of a debt of gratitude. And I guess what I would say to that, I think through my life, I've met lots of different people at lots of different times and gained energy from them. And I guess that's what inspiration is. You gain an energy from something or somebody. And I would say that would be more my story, rather than I want to be like this person and I'm inspired by that particular person over perhaps other people. I think I've garnered energy and inspiration from lots of different sources, from people, from experiences. I mean, just, for example, being in the Olympic Stadium in Seoul in 1988, it was like, wow, this is inspiring. Next time I'm here, I'd like to do better. It turned out I did worse 4 years later in Barcelona, but that's by the by. But I guess it's life experiences, and it could be people, it could be, as I say, a place, it could be an event, it could be a tiny little thing from somebody perhaps not even involved with sport, from which you would gain strength and gain energy. And that would be how I define inspiration.
I think we can do that from all aspects of life, can't we? It's such an important thing.
What do you mean inspired by a film?
Yeah.
Completely made up, and you could be sitting there and, whatever it might be, a soundtrack. I mean, I always feel inspired by the soundtrack of The Lord of the Rings. And there's just something about it which, Gladiator.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it might be, or yeah. So
I like that. So if you were stood in front of your teenage self now, what advice would you give and why?
I always think we sort of make the decisions we make at the time with the set of circumstances that we've got. And even if somebody was stood in front of you saying, do it this way, you'd probably still do it the same way that you did do it back then. Do you know, I don't think I would say any more than what I did at the time and what my parents instilled within me. I am very fortunate in that I look back at my life and there aren't a lot of, I wish I'd done this, or I'd done that, or I messed that up, or I should have done this better, or I wish I hadn't done that, or whatever it might be. I don't have a lot of, I don't believe in regrets, but even as people define them, I wouldn't say I had any regrets. So yeah, I don't think, I wouldn't say any more than I've already told you about what my parents taught me. I think if I was looking at my teenage, I might question my dress sense or something like that. I don't think there'll be anything more than that.
I think we could all look back on our dress sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what do you want your legacy to be, and what do you want to be remembered for?
I mean, it's a funny, I don't know really. I mean, it's lovely that I'll go down in history as having held a world record and been an Olympic champion, and that is something that's special. And I guess my children's children and their children will look back in the record books and say, well, that was great granddad, and that's what he did, and he was the world record holder for 25 years or however long it's going to be. But it's a funny old thing, legacy, because once I'm gone, and it's sort of, from my perspective, it doesn't mean anything. But in the end, what made me what I am was my values and the way that I went about living my life and trying to be as good as I could be. And I guess if there's, if that was the blueprint for my success, I guess that's what you'd want your legacy to be, because you can't control the outcomes, and you're born with a certain genetic profile and certain abilities. And no matter how hard you try, there are certain things you probably can't achieve. And never will achieve, no matter how diligent you are. So I guess the important thing is how you go about living your life and approaching the challenges that life sets before you and the things that you want to achieve. So I guess that's the most important thing. It's not particularly dramatic, but I guess it would be an approach to life, which would be your best legacy, or my best legacy, possibly. Yeah, something like that.
No, I like that. So what was your biggest challenge that you faced today, and how have you overcome that?
Actually, I don't think I would say it was one thing. I think being an athlete, it can be quite a lonely experience. You live a life different from most of the people around you. So it's sort of quite isolating, constantly living with that need to improve, to look after yourself, the pressure of performing. And I think to sustain a career for, 1993 was my first major medal. And I had 10 years, close to the top of my sport. And it was incessant, it was relentless. The environment was ruthless. Certainly once I'd become world record holder, everybody was trying to beat me. So I think to maintain that level of performance over a decade probably was the biggest success. Because the amount of energy and focus and dedication it involved, I think over a long period of time, we could all get ourselves up for a one-off or a short period of time, but to do something sustained over that length of time would probably be my greatest achievement.
And it is such a significant achievement because your record still hasn't been broken.
Yeah, I thought I would break it. It felt so easy on the day that I did it, but that's what athletes always say: when you get it absolutely right, it feels really easy. And yeah, you look at the way many events have progressed. It's a surprise that it hasn't been broken, and there has been some great athletes who've been in the event. So yeah, I'm immensely proud. And I'm sure there's a loads of the guys that have been competing just look at this skinny white guy and think, how can he jump further than us? It's quite amusing.
But you did, right?
But I did, yeah, I did.
So Jonathan, what are you up to now, and where can we find you?
So I'm actually at a point in life where I'm ready to slow down and sort of semi-retired. I don't want to do another big broadcasting job. I enjoy being at home. I enjoy spending time with my friends and family. I want to get my golf handicap down. And that was certainly an interesting thing, that when I was working and doing some very exciting stuff in broadcasting, I'd be thinking, you know what, I prefer to be playing with my mates on Wednesday, where we all turn up and we have, a cooked breakfast, throw the balls in the air and then tee off. So I think it's definitely a change in lifetime for me, and I'm ready for it. I'll do a few bits and pieces work-wise here and there, but I think it's that time of life when the focus changes more on just slowing down and less on achievement.
I think having a life that's full of enjoyment is what we all should be aiming to get anyway.
I think you're right, and we find it in all sorts of ways. And for some people, it's found in working incredibly hard, and always feeling like you're progressing and perhaps improving at something. And for others, it's a slightly different way. But I mean, isn't that the beauty of life? I guess we're all different. We have to find our own way.
100%. Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of SnipBit.
It's a pleasure, Hayley. Thanks for your questions. They were really good, very thought-provoking.
Thank you.